An NFL insider thinks the Rams are still a possible destination for this former number 2 overall pick. PFF gives the Rams their free agent grades. And will the Rams change their draft strategy? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know down below. Would you want to see the Rams trade for Zach Wilson, and what grade would you give the Rams so far after a week of free agency? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI Dodgers Nation, 24/7 Sports, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just finished his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, PFF gives the Rams a grade for the first week of free agency. Was it high? Was it low? We're going to give you our reaction to that. Also, should the Rams trade for Zach Wilson? An insider thinks it's still a possibility. And do the Rams need to change their draft strategy after Aaron Donald's retirement? That's coming up. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Travis, so we're going to dive right into it. PFF, they gave the Rams a B for the first week of free agency. They upgrade the offensive line massively with Jonah Jackson, tight end Colby Parkinson. That seems to be one of the more hotly debated signings. A good blocker, has a lot of upside. And then you bring in Darius Williams, cornerback. So, yeah, they've made some moves. I think it wasn't the flashiest moves, not the Danielle Hunter types, right? But so you got Curl as well. But still, I think a B, it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think, to get an A or maybe even a B plus, you need to have something that's a little bit splashier. Maybe, something that's, maybe an edge or a big name wide receiver. Maybe if you're in the market for a quarterback, that's the way that gets you over the top there. But I think all of these are signings. And I don't know if you get credit for Kevin Dotson because he never technically got to the free agency, whether that counts or not. But I think what it is all of those are pieces that are going to make them a better football team. Is there anything that's going to, you're going to run out and call all your friends and talk about how you rebuilt the interior of your offensive line? Probably not. Picking up a tight end that's more known as a blocking back? Probably not. Getting a corner in Darius Williams who's coming back for the second time? Probably not. But all of those guys will either start or be key backups. And I think that's how you build depth on a football team. And I think that's how I think it speaks to just where Les Snead, where Sean McVay think this team is, because they didn't need to go big game hunting. They need to plug some small holes, and I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, you mentioned Kevin Dotson. That's absolutely included in this. He signs for 3 years, $48 million. We've said it for months now. That was absolutely a sign they had to make. And I think now that we've seen the dust settle and we have some clarity with Aaron Donald retiring, I think the strategy is very clear at this point. This is an offense that wants to keep the ball, that wants to just control the clock, keep that offense on the field, behind that monster line, open gaping holes for Kyren Williams, use Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, and try to outscore opponents while also controlling that clock. So you did that. I think when you consider everything, you lose a franchise player in Aaron Donald, a franchise-altering retirement, and that, I think it's definitely a solid offseason so far, and I think a B is definitely good. I think for me, it's really the difference is, okay, you didn't get that flashy name like you're talking about, but when you lose Aaron Donald, I don't think they're as in, okay, win now flashy mode as you could expect. I think this team still expects to win a ton of games. I still think that in their building, they want to win the Super Bowl and think they can, but I don't think that a Danielle Hunter signing would have moved the needle at this point as much as Rams fans would have hoped with AD retiring like he did.
Yeah, the Aaron Donald thing kind of puts it in a weird spot because, that's not technically part of your free agency grade, but it's hard not to feel like the team, is not as good as it was, this time on Friday. That when we woke up on Friday morning and thought that Aaron Donald was going to be a part of the Rams for the 2024 season, it came with it a certain set of expectations. It came with it an understanding that no matter what's happening on defense, at least you have a guy in Aaron Donald who's going to be able to keep you in games. A guy who's going to be able to blow up some plays now and again that maybe even if everybody else isn't perfect, that he can just kind of be the great human eraser, right? And erase some of the other problems that you have. Him leaving, that's not true anymore. And I think it just kind of, I don't want to say it's a sour taste because I think that's a little too aggressive, but I think it's just, it's a different taste knowing that your team is radically altered on that side of the ball. Now, here's the other part. This was not a team that was going to be led by its defense. They're not as good of a defense today as they were, a week or so ago. But that doesn't mean, like you said a second ago, Doug, that they can't go win a lot of games. They're going to win games with their defense. They got to get a lot better on special teams, and they have to do the best they can to try to fill some holes that Aaron Donald's going to leave. You're not going to replace him, but it's hard to evaluate the Rams offseason without letting that Aaron Donald piece kind of sneak into the back of your mind.
No, absolutely. And as we're on the topic of grades, it almost feels like he was an elite college player that's leaving after his junior season, right? And he's going to the NFL, right? Because he doesn't have anything else to accomplish. And I think when you look at the departure of Aaron Donald, you look at the team, what really PFF notes is they have questions about the tackle spots and Alaric Jackson. If Alaric Jackson can be solid, I think that changes the complexion. And look, we know how football, it's won in the trenches, right? It's won by good tackling, good blocking, but Super Bowls are won with offense, outscoring your opponents. The Patrick Mahomes type. So look, as long as this offense can generate points like I think that it can, I still think this team has enough to make a run next season. I like where they're at, but it's definitely about rebuilding this defense. They're going to have to really do it through the draft at this point. And we're going to talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Rams. Will the Rams change their draft strategy with Aaron Donald retiring? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, so you got a big event coming up. You're like, I got to get tickets to that game. I got to make sure that I get everything I need for that concert or that comedy show or whatever it is. And then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't do it. No worries. Gametime. Put the Gametime app on your phone because you shouldn't have to worry about when you buy your tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, all the music, all the comedy, all the theater events near you. And with killer last-minute deals, with all-in prices, of course, you're going to get views from the seats and their best price guarantee. Gametime is taking all the guesswork out of buying tickets. And here's one of my favorite parts about this, that maybe you're kind of on the fence of whether you want to go or not. And maybe you're thinking, you know what, the game's going to start in 5 minutes. You don't even have to worry about that as well. You can get great deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find your last minute tickets. Exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You cannot miss with Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying your next tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
And we are off running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to our everyday listeners out there. We appreciate you watching and listening every single episode of Locked On Rams. And you can join the Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to look ahead to the draft a little bit because we've been talking about it for weeks. We're talking about maybe, yes, you want to take the best player available that has the highest upside, the guy you like the most. And we're talking about maybe a tackle, maybe an edge, maybe a cornerback. Now, do you look interior line? Well, Mel Kiper, in his latest mock draft, he has the Rams selecting Texas interior lineman Byron Murphy II. And he's widely considered to be the best interior lineman in the draft. And for me, I still believe that you want to take the best player possible. If you think he can have an Aaron Donald-like impact, of course you do that. But we know that Aaron Donald is one of one. So don't just go and force an interior lineman just because you have to replace AD.
I think it's great advice, and I share your point of view, Doug, because I think it's really hard, right? When the guy who's been your team for 10 years decides that he's done, your first instinct, I think most people's first instinct is, okay, how do we replace him? I think Les Snead and Sean McVay, you do not replace Aaron Donald. If the Rams get another Aaron Donald type of player, another player with the impact of 99 one more time in the next 50 years, they're going to be luckier than most teams in the NFL. Those guys don't come around very often like that. So you're not going to find another one. You need to resist the temptation to try to say, okay, we lost the defensive tackle. Let's go draft a defensive tackle. The board should be the board. If the best player available on your board is available at 19, take him. The only exception I would have to that is quarterback. That I don't think that you take a young quarterback right now that you need to develop. I don't think that that's the place that you go because Matthew Stafford still has a lot of left in that arm. He's still ready to go. I don't think you're at that point next. But taking quarterback and putting it aside, take the best player available. If that's a linebacker, take the linebacker. If that's an offensive lineman, take that. If that's an edge, a corner, whatever it is, take the player that you have ranked highest on your board and go from there.
Agree, and that could be the case. We don't know internally if they think that or not. And what Typo says about him is he even kind of points it out. He says, look, you don't expect him to be a perennially all-pro type of player, but says he has intriguing tools. He had 5 sacks and created 33 pressures last season. That match makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing. When they took Aaron Donald, he was the best defensive tackle in that draft, and he was the highest defensive tackle taken. So if they truly believe this is the best defensive tackle, there is that parallel there. If you look at that draft, by the way, back in 2014, Clowney, number 1 overall, you had Greg Robinson out of Auburn, Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, Mike Evans, Justin Gilbert, Anthony Barr out of UCLA. I think had a really solid career.
He did.
And then Eric Ebron and Taylor Lewin and Odell Beckham Jr. So, look, I mean, the point I'm trying to make there is, yeah, like if they think he's the best defensive tackle and they want to fill that position moving forward and they see all-pro potential, I'm not against the move, but like I said, you can't force it.
No, you can't. Take the best guy available. Because, look, here's the thing, and this is the part that nobody likes to talk about out loud. If you've had 500 in your draft in the first round, you did a pretty good job, right? You're going to miss as often as you get it right. Those names you were just running out, Greg Robinson was the Rams draft pick. I think it was 2nd overall. Dude couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie, right? So you didn't, he's gone. And so it didn't work out. In the first round, they also got Aaron Donald. They got Todd Gurley. They got Michael Brockers. They got Jared Goff. They've done a pretty good job of drafting players in the first round. So you cross your fingers, you take the best guy that's there, and you hope that it works out. And if you catch lightning in a bottle, maybe you do get a guy like Aaron Donald who, again, I want to take that back. That's wrong. You're not going to get a guy like Aaron Donald, but maybe you get a guy that's an all-pro. Maybe you get a guy that is a multiple-time Pro Bowler, somebody that can anchor your defense. You're not getting a first-ballot deadlock cinch Hall of Famer, maybe the best guy ever. You're not getting another one of those, but you can get another really good player.
Yeah, I remember them mentioning Robinson with the Jonathan Ogdens of the world and the Orlando Paces of the world. And yeah, that was a colossal bust. Kind of threw up a little bit in my mouth just saying that name a couple minutes ago. But yeah, I think we're on the same page with this one. I definitely think that this does give the Rams the opportunity to kind of look big picture down the line and not have to basically get that win now piece that they think, okay, maybe the upside isn't as high as some of these other guys, but we know he can play and he has quality to play this season. So maybe they go with more of an upside play. And also there's the factor too, the please come back Aaron Donald factor too. I mean, you use that pick on a position he's going to play. Let's say for whatever reason, let's just keep the dream alive and he returns. Then it's like, okay, maybe we should go on a corner. Maybe we should go on an edge there.
What do you think the chances are? I will put it at 1 in 20. That he comes back, but again, that's not nothing. It's 5%, right? It's not something you're going to bet your house on. But if we're painting a picture of Aaron Donald a year from now, okay, I don't expect him to play this upcoming season, but let's say a year from now, his body's feeling good, and he's just saying, you know what, I want to keep playing football. That doesn't sound super far-fetched to me. What would you put it at?
Man, I mean, these guys like Aaron Donald and Barry Sanders, they always just feel like they're so content with their decision. Years after, Barry Sanders feels like he's so content with his decision. I mean, my heart tells me, man, maybe there's like a 20, 30% chance. My mind kind of tells me that there's less than 10%, maybe 5%, just because I think that he has nothing else to prove. He's a walking statue. He cemented his legacy. And like I said, if he was injured, let's say he was injured last season, right? Let's say his body, when you see this guy looking like Bruce Banner in cleats, right? When you see his body, maybe his body doesn't look as good. He was still a 10 out of 10 in peak physical shape. He was still a 10 out of 10 as a player, and he still walked away from that. So it's not like a situation where he says, okay, I'm feeling better and rested and my body feels better. I think his body feels great. He's freaking Aaron Donald. He's a superhero, and he still walked away from this.
I do too. And the Barry Sanders thing always interests me because that's the name that P keeps getting compared to. They both played exactly 10 years. They both were arguably the best at their position, et cetera, et cetera. There's a major difference, though, that people kind of just tend to blow past. Barry Sanders was on a terrible team. Barry Sanders was with a terrible organization that couldn't do anything right. Barry Sanders was so frustrated by being on just a trash Lions team for so long that it was like, what am I doing here? There's nothing left for me to do. We're not going to be good. We're not going to be competitive. That's not the case with Aaron Donald. This is a good team that treated him with a great deal of respect, that treated him like the Hall of Famer that he was, that would absolutely put him in a position to walk back through that door and compete for a second ring. And like we know that it's winning the Super Bowl is damn hard and not a lot of people do it. Winning 2 Super Bowls, that's a whole nother class of player altogether.
I agree with you from that standpoint. I think that people also don't mention with the whole Barry Sanders and Aaron Donald thing is that, look, he saw no hope in Detroit. And they let go a lot of those free agents that they didn't want to re-sign when they had momentum there. And they didn't see winning in their future. Whereas Aaron Donald, though, he has his Super Bowl ring, right? I mean, I think if Barry Sanders had his Super Bowl ring in a couple years before he retired, he would be still satisfied with his retirement. So I don't think necessarily that, the Aaron Donald is going to return. But I will say that you can feel his love for football, and you can feel just it oozes out of him just every snap, the competitive fire. I mean, I was watching a video a couple days ago of him doing just self-talk just during a Super Bowl game and just telling him to basically take his game to a whole nother level that you just cannot. I mean, the couple of athletes, I talked to Frank Thomas randomly in Vegas a couple years ago, and we were kind of like, I don't know, to have some drinks. It was kind of cool, just some random guy at a bar. And that's the one thing he told me is like, there's no charity work, there's no golf event, there's no anything can get anywhere close. Coaching, nothing gets you anywhere close to when you're between the lines and you got that juice again. So how much is he going to miss that juice when it actually begins? Wow. That's kind of my big question. That's the only hope that I'm clinging on to.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I don't think it's likely. I think it's probably in the single digits of chances that he comes back. But I think there's a chance. I just, guys like him, I think, and who knows? It's hard to put yourself in a mindset of such a great athlete like that. But his body feels good. His mind is sharp. And I have a feeling that you're going to miss it at some point. I guess the question is how much.
There's no doubt about it. Now, coming up next, could the Rams still trade and get Zach Wilson? We're going to talk about that real quick here on Locked On Rams.
Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, that you can still have an IRA, an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRAs with 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. So here, Travis, we're going to probably touch on this in tomorrow's show, too. We're going to talk a little more Zach Wilson, but Albert Breer thinks even after the Rams signed Jimmy Garoppolo that they could still be a destination, a logical landing spot, as he said, for Jets quarterback Zach Wilson. He mentions that you would reunite him with his old offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, and that he'd be open to a reunion. What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson? Look, the talent, the upside is there. Maybe throw him in the Breakfast Club with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp for a couple years. Maybe that light switch turns on, because I will say, if you're going to draft a quarterback with a 5th or 6th round pick, took a 6th round pick to get Mac Jones, might not be the worst option.
Yeah, no, I think there's very little risk, and I think there's potential return. Like you said, like Zach Wilson was the 2nd pick in the draft just a few years ago. That there's some talent in there, to be sure. He went to maybe the biggest bozo, organization in all of the NFL, in the New York Jets. They haven't been able to get their act together in, 40 years. So I don't think that you can really put all of that on him. Here's my concern with Zach Wilson, and here's why I think the Rams should probably take a chance on this. It appears that what he struggled with the most is being a professional. And taking responsibility and being prepared and understanding that it's your fault even when it's not your fault, and it's really your fault when it is your fault. I don't think that he really kind of understood that. Matthew Stafford is the ultimate professional. Matthew Stafford was on a bad team for a long time, a bad organization, and he knew what it took to kind of navigate through that. Jimmy Garoppolo, for all of the people that don't like him, I don't get it. And B, Jimmy Garoppolo is a professional quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is prepared. Jimmy Garoppolo studied under Tom Brady. He worked for Kyle Shanahan. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be ready to go. Throw him around 2 pros like those guys, and if it doesn't rub off, it's not going to rub off. If Sean McVay can't rub off on him, if those guys can't teach him how to be a pro, then he's not going to be a pro. I can't imagine it costs anything to get your hands on him other than, hey, you want to come in here and try to rehab your gear, your career, then come do it. And if it doesn't work, you kick him down the road. Who cares? I really don't think there's much downside at all. But if you found the quarterback of your future and it cost you basically nothing, think about how much that would be worth.
Absolutely. That's what makes it so intriguing. And like you said, you have to allow him to develop from a mental standpoint, some maturity, as I think something he really needs. But like you point out, too, he was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft for a reason, because of his physical tools, because of the ability that he's shown on tape. I think that's kind of the big thing for me. I do like the idea. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was talking about months ago about Zach Wilson. And look, I think for me, you're on the Jets, too. We got to point it out. You are on the Jets, an inept franchise. Okay. I always say that when Aaron Donald and the Jets, the Jets are in a darkness retreat for a long time, like Aaron Rodgers, right? The way that their seasons have gone, I think you allow him in a new organization to learn under Sean McVay and Mike LaFleur. It's going to be the right situation for him. And the fact you have Jimmy Garoppolo, you're not desperate for him to ascend right now. You still can give him some time. He's still young enough. And also, too, look, you're in Los Angeles. You're in LA, and he already looks like an actor who would play Zach Wilson in a Disney movie about Zach Wilson. So, look, he can act on the side. Imagine that. Zach Wilson, Jimmy G, and Matthew Stafford. That's like a movie right there, man.
Hey, here's what I need out of you. I need you to make sure that you do not listen to my radio show the next couple of days, because if you don't think I'm saying that and pretending that it's my own line, then you don't know me very well, because that is awesome. He looks like an actor playing Zach Wilson in a movie about Zach Wilson. Perfect.
Hey, it's the truth, right? Come on now. And you also look at the way he's performed. Like I said, it wouldn't be the worst in the world. I think that kind of what we need to do is start looking long term as far as these options that you're not really on the heels of Matthew Stafford at all whatsoever, but you're taking advantage of Matthew Stafford and absorbing from him.
There's no risk. The odds are Zach Wilson probably sucks. Okay, so he sucks, and then you move. He comes in, he leaves again, and it's like Rippin coming through here. It's like Bryce Perkins or what? Who cares? It didn't cost you anything. But what on the chance that he doesn't? What if it was a Jets thing? What if it was he needed to grow up? What if it was he needed to be around some pros? And you get something for nothing? It's a 1 in 1,000 shot, but it's a shot worth taking.
No doubt about it. And we'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show, some future options and what the Rams need to do in the aftermath of Aaron Donald's retirement. But that's going to be this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_Lay. And as always, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.